Hey everyone, how's it going? I hope you're good. April's coming to a close. Means summer is coming. Summer is on the way. What does that mean for you? Does that mean more wind or less wind? I know every spot is different. Maui has had a very weird spring. Normally we have more waves and also, frankly, more windy days. We've had a lot of days that have a lot of wind. No, let me put it a different way. The days we've had that are windy are very windy, but we've had far fewer windy days than normal. It's been an odd spring. Did you sail this week? Um, who is that on Facebook? For some reason it doesn't show up. But funny. No wind, time to move. Where are you? Where are you moving to? Hey Axel, how are you enjoying Morocco? Let me know if you sailed this week. How was it? Where was it? How were the conditions? What were you working on? I think I've only sailed 2 times since I saw you last, and I had a surfing session. The footage we're looking at now is from yesterday, and then there was another day that was really difficult. I'll upload that footage as well, and we can talk about it. And then the surfing session, I got wrapped up in a man o' war. We call them Portuguese man o' war. I don't know if that's what they actually are. They're not jellyfish, but they kind of look like jellyfish. And I was stung all over. It was very painful. Hey, Rasmus. Hey, Matt. Pozo in May, Mule in June. Sounds like a good plan. Pozo in May, Mule in June. Yeah, so this was my session yesterday. I got to the beach late. I was doing stuff with the family, and so I got to the beach really at the end of the day, but it was a perfect hour. I sailed, I think, just an hour, but it was perfect. It was exactly the conditions that I wanted for that day. I mean, the waves could have been a little bit bigger, but it was really fun. Suna, nice. You had 4 sessions on the north coast of Zealand. That sounds like pretty good week, I would say. Um, yeah. So anyway, so this was my day. I don't know if there's something to talk about with this footage. If you have any questions about my footage from this day, let me know. I don't know. It looked like that didn't work this wave. Oh no, sorry, Facebook user. Who is that on Facebook? Tell me who you are. It's not showing me your name. So let me know who injured your foot. Who it is who has the injured foot, because that sounds painful. I'm sorry to hear it. Oh, it's Bertrand. Bertrand. And Thomas, also in the comments. All right. All right. Yeah, bummer. That sounds painful. That sounds painful. Sorry to hear it. Speedy recovery. I've got another few weeks on Maui, 2 weeks, and then I also going to Europe. I'll be doing a couple trips as well. I want to do a Canaries trip and a few other trips, and I'm going to do some coaching again as well, like I have in the previous years. I'll announce those details pretty soon, I think. Yeah, I don't know what other housekeeping stuff we have to go over. Do you guys have any questions about the footage? This is a great exercise, going on the lee side, going upwind on a wave. Hey, Max, how are you doing? Uh, yeah, this was a fun session. I'm hoping to have another session today. Like I said, we really have had uncharacteristically few days, but the days that we have had been fun. There's a, so let me show you this video here. Let's see if this loads. All right, so this day was so light that I swam out from the beach and swam around the rocks using the current at Hokipa. So I see I'm swimming with my gear around the rocks. It was I this isn't the first time I've done this, but it's pretty gnarly feeling. And then super light. There were too many surfers at Hokipa, so I went down to lanes. Really hard to catch waves. And yeah, like waves are passing under. At this point, it was just me, Morgan, and Coco. I think it was a little bit better earlier. You can see here, I just get stuck a bit behind the peak. I don't have the power. At this point, I was kind of frustrated. And I was thinking, oh no, I'm going to come in and I'm not even going to be able to get back out again. But I did manage to get out, and I had the camera guy left, but I did have one wave that I was really proud of going backside actually on this day. Uh, anyway, all right, that's enough of my sailing. This is a 90. Matt's asking what volume board. I think this is a 93 liter board. It says 95 on it, but I think it's 93. But I like it a lot. It's one of my old boards, and it's one of my favorites as well. All right, I'm going to load up the Facebook group. You guys are all veterans. You know the drill. You can ask me any questions, interrupt whatever you want to know, we can talk about. So let's load up the Facebook group here. All right, here we are. And just get into it with what is posted for the week. Here, we can make this a little bit smaller. I think that will increase the real estate on the screen. There we go. All right. So Tomas wants to talk about this at the end of the live stream, so I'm going to come back to it. So Tomas, speaking of Tomas, he did a trip to Maui. He came for, I think it was 3 weeks, and I'm really proud of Tomas for making the trip. You know, Tomas is a member of our Facebook community, hardcore windsurfer, windsurfers a lot around Europe, in Sweden and Denmark, makes trips to the Canary Islands, like a lot of you guys. And I think Maui can feel really far away and really out of reach. But Tomas just decided to pull the trigger. I gave him a few contacts, but I actually really didn't help him that much with planning the trip, a little bit. And yeah, he pulled the trigger, had a great trip to Maui. He wrote a little report here. So if you're interested in hearing his, it's here. He said he'll definitely come back. And even though we didn't have normal April conditions, he still had a lot of days on the water. I think had a really good time. So if you are thinking about going to Maui, yeah, post about it in the group. I think, you know, I can definitely help, but other people like Tomas who have made the trip can help. And I think it's really worth it. I think Maui is a trip that, you know, if you're a windsurfer, it's worth doing at least once. I want to, not yet, but maybe next year, I want to start running some of my own trips, helping people come and handling more of the organization side. I'm not ready to do that yet, but that's something that I'd like to do just to help share Maui. All right, first up, we've got a post from Axel. He says that he's in Morocco, but unfortunately his action cam is refusing to connect to the laptop. So he can only post a still of a recent cutback, even though conditions here are the exact opposite of those in Handsome. My body English seems to have improved a bit since the Denmark clinic. Nice. Trying to extend the arms and get that butt low. Good. I'm also working on my timing on the wave and started finding and hitting more and more of those corner sections. Cool. That's great. So this is a really positive post. I like seeing this body position. It looks like what we want to see. You know, you've got a bit of bend in this front arm. You're getting that butt down and putting the board in the high five position. So awesome. Something that's really important to remember, and I find I've been watching a little bit of the surfing. So there was recently a surfing World Cup in Australia, and some of the footage that came out of that, you can really see in the cutbacks how low the butts are and how there's there's no reason to push the hips forward. And for some reason in windsurfing, there's a tendency when you're starting to do cutbacks to bring the hips up, to elevate the hips, push the hips forward. Don't want to do it. And if you watch surfing, like maybe like let's see, World Surf League. Let's see if we can find some pictures from this. This is actually probably not going to be very productive finding pictures, but let's see if we can find at least one or two.
In Hawaii, we sometimes keep things cool.
Sorry. All right, let's see. I want to find one surfing thing. Do you guys watch surfing? How many people watch surfing from the group? So I want to find some frontside turns. Let's see if we can find something. Looks like we've got an ad. I just want to find, let's just watch the main waves. So they used to be able to, they keep changing how this works. You used to be able to click on the wave and go to it. Maybe you still can in a different place. Anyway, if we can't easily find the wave, there's no point in doing this now. I'll post some other footage into the Facebook group. But basically what I want to show is that you don't want to push the hips forward. And for some reason, there's a tendency to do that in windsurfing. And if you watch surfing, which has very similar mechanics, obviously we have the sail, so there are some differences, but the core body mechanics are really similar, especially for the lower body. There's no reason to push the hips in. And I recommend watching some surfing. If you're interested in wave riding and you don't watch surfing, I recommend watching a little bit. And you can watch some of the competitions from the WSL or watching highlight clips, whatever else. It doesn't really matter, but getting some of that surfing body language in your brain can be really helpful. Okay, so here we have Griffin Colapinto taking off. So if we see, okay, there's a high five. I want to see a cutback here. So here you can see how low his hips are, right? And how compressed he is. And so this is a off the lip, not like a carving cutback, but just look at how much how compressed he is. The butt is low, the knees are bent, getting that high five. And that's actually a really similar body position that we get in windsurfing sometimes. And the key thing is the hips are not being pushed forward, right? Like, look how much compression there is in the knees and how low the butt is, getting the high five and letting the wave then project his board, push him forward. So if we, here, I'm going to close out of this and go back to this footage and see if I can find a similar cutback from me. Just as a little example, just to show the similarities in the body position. I think the last off the lip maybe works. So I would like to see a more vertical bottom turn. These waves were kind of choppy. But anyway, just in terms of body position for cutbacks, you can see the similarities here. Again, the butt is the lowest point in the beginning of the cutback. The knees are compressed. Butt is low. Again, it's a little bit different. We have the sail, which helps keep me up a little bit. For those cutbacks in surfing, you need to be even more compressed in order to stay with everything. But the basic concept is the same, which is very different than pushing those hips forward, which is something that there's a tendency to do. All right, so I'm gonna switch back to the Facebook group, and we're just gonna keep on with the lesson. So if you guys have any questions, let me know. All right, so Hans posted this video about the dynamics of surfing. So this is very cool. It's good to understand what's happening on the wave. Obviously, the windsurfing dynamics are a little bit different because we have a sail, but how a surfboard interacts with a wave is, I think, really interesting to know. So that's worth checking out. There's something that Billy Short talks about in terms of fins. He gets into a little discussion with Hans about toe-in and fins. And there's just one thing, I think in general, I think Billy has a lot of knowledge and his posts are really interesting. There's one thing he talks about here where he says that wave events don't seem to be won by wave sailors on fins with toe-in. And I just thought that was a little bit of a weird comment for a few reasons, but I agree a lot. I agree with 90% of what he's saying. So this is nothing against what Billy is saying. I just wanted to point it out. So let me find it here. So he's saying about wave events. I don't seem to see it, but he's talking about that. Oh, here it is. Windsurf wave events are usually won by riders on boards with no toe-in. I don't know if that's true. In fact, I'd probably say it's not true. It's really hard to know what the toe-in is because even if you don't have toe-in on your fins, a lot of board manufacturers, if you're riding a quad or a thruster, are towing in the boxes. So toe-in is the amount of angle that the front fin boxes have and how angled in they are. And so some boards are built with that angle already in. Some have the boxes straight. And the idea is that you want to have a little bit of toe-in. And so brands like K4 make fins with toe-in so that if you have straight boxes or only 1 degree of toe-in in the boxes in the board, you can get to a 2 or 3 degree of toe-in total on the board. But some boards already have that toe-in built in. So it's really hard to say who has toe-in and who doesn't. And from a PWA perspective, very few wave events are won based on turns. I would say almost none are based on turns. Most of them are based on jumping and onshore riding and tricks. So turning, which is kind of where the toe-in, at least for me, seems to make a big difference, is a small factor. And then if you look at who's winning the most events, someone like Philip Koster, who is in immense natural talent. I mean, Koster could be riding almost anything and still do his jumps and tricks, which is what he's doing to win the events, not turning. So it really matters what the guys are doing who wins the events. And for me, with the fins, with the side fins, is I notice a difference when I need help. So it's not about making that peak performance that much higher. It's about bringing up the bottom performance. So it makes initiating the bottom turns a little bit easier, makes holding the rail and the cutbacks a little bit easier. So I'm just looking at it from the other side. So rather than looking at what the event winners are doing to win, I think of it more as like, okay, it's bringing up the bottom of my performance. So it's not increasing my peak, but it's bringing up my floor. And it just makes things a little bit easier. Rasmus is saying that Brasinho and Pare are using towed-in semi-asymmetric side fins. Yeah, so again, I think it's just incorrect to say that riders are not using toe-in. Claudia, this is a great question. What not to do with the hips on the cutback? I will have to find one. I definitely do have videos of that, and maybe we'll come across a video of it in the rest of the coaching for today. At the moment, I don't have one prepared though. I just thought of that looking at Axel's clip photo. All right, let's get back to this. So Ziki is planning a trip to Pacasmayo in August. Is anyone else going? Does anyone have any information? So this is super interesting. I don't have information. I know that the situation in Peru has been pretty dangerous. I don't know if that's improved or not. I'll find out. I can reach out to the IWT and see what the status is of the event. Pacasmayo is also a place that in the future I'd like to plan a windsurfing masterclass coaching week. I think it looks like a very good place for improving windsurfing and a dream destination. All right, next up, Jurgen says, today was the debut session of the year. He tried 30 forwards last season and never made one. Today, 4.5 and 7.7, full 77 liter, fully powered up, second run, just went for it and made a decent forward. Nice. Cool. Nice. That's great to hear. All right, Jakob has a question. He asks about my Maui versus my Denmark board. I don't know if we talked about this last week, but anyway, in short, here's my post here. In short, my Maui boards are generally longer outline, narrower width, and a little bit more rocker because the waves here have so much power. And so that's what you need to sort of fit into the wave. The boards for Denmark or Europe are a little bit wider, especially in the tail, a little bit straighter rocker, which are better for carrying speed and picking up speed, keeping speed on the European waves, which don't have as much power here. And if you try and bottom turn one of those boards here, normally the board just kind of stops because there's just too much shape in the wave. But I'm actually really liking my European board on Maui at the moment. All right, I think we're caught up. That's amazing. That was fast. Oh, no, these are some older posts. So, all right, Adrian. Oh, and we have Tomaz's as well. So Adrian says, October last year, he got a cheap board for his son, and looks like he modified this sail. He made a 2.5. He had a 5.0 that he modified. Cool. Super cool. Great to get. God, look, there it is. Great to get the kids on the water. Cool. All right, so now we're going to go up to Tomaz's post. And again, if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to interrupt. All right, so Tomaz says, Tomaz says, I didn't expect that side-off conditions would cause so much trouble to adapt to. Long clip from one of the last days at Hokipa with gusty wind, quite cross off. First 4.5, then 4.2. Waves are in chronological order. It started horrible with bad timing and placement, and slowly I started to get into the rhythm. What was difficult for me is to plan where I am going to turn so much down the line, in a part of a wave I don't really see or hasn't built up yet. When I start to get going down the line, another thing I did wrong was not staying high enough on the wave. I think my riding trajectory was wrong most of the time, resulting in dropping of speed in the middle of on the beach. At first, I set up like on a side shore wave, pointing too much upwind at the start and dropping in too soon and too much into the beach. As the days went by, he improved. Hokipa, he had a lot to relearn. First, how to make proper single turns in the power section, and second, how to time a wave for multiple turns. Different sets seemed to break differently most of the days. In the more side shore days, my riding was better. I guess it takes practice. Definitely takes practice. All right, so here's the clip. Let's put this full screen. So this is an example of what Tomaz is talking about. So here where the wind is side off, you don't need to be setting up like this, unless you're really trying to hit this section. Otherwise, you want to be facing down the line like this, setting up, and then also higher on the wave. So instead of being on the bottom of the wave, you want to be setting up more on the top of the wave, which then makes it easier to get speed and go down the line. For this particular wave, Tomas could have gone earlier, so that fade costs him that section. Goes for a little aerial. All right, let's watch the next one. So setting up, a little bit better with the setup. You can see that he's facing more into the oncoming wave. Could still be setting up higher on the wave though. When you're coming down the line like this, you want to start a little bit higher, so you don't go so far in front with the bottom turn. It gives you more speed. All right, next wave. Here we go. Again, better setting up. Look, more speed. That's a big section though. So I recommend, if you're not going to hit this full on, doing a face turn somewhere here, which will still feel great. In general, I think you really want to be able to commit 100% to your line. And Tomas, it looks like this section is just a little bit too big for you to commit to, so you're going on top of it rather than in it. So then you're not getting the high five and going out the back. I think that's a pretty important point, is that you want to be able to commit 100% to your line. And so then rather than going for a section that you know that you can't commit to, and then you end up doing something different or going out the back, turn a little bit before the section or go a little bit earlier. Oof, ouch. So here there's some kind of bounce going on in the board. So either you're pressing too far back too quickly, and then the board is bouncing on its outline, or you hit a chop. Hard to tell from that, but then you're just getting smashed. All right. So you don't want to jam the tail of the board. If you push too hard on the back foot too quickly on the rail, then the board will bounce on its outline. Okay, that's nice. Nice job. All right, next wave. All right, so setting up, again, a little better, a little bit more speed. Going for that high five, which is good. I want to see you sheeting out more to be able to go more vertical. Okay, so this is a good example of what I'm talking about. If you don't want to hit that section, just do the turn right next to it. You can still do a nice turn, and then you can commit 100% to your line. I think Tomas, in general, there's a couple things for the technique that I see. In addition to what we already talked about with setting up, you want to be sheeting out more in your bottom turn. So at this point in the bottom turn, you want to start sheeting out, which then allows you to go more vertical on the wave, because if you're sheeting in, the sail, everything's being pulled down this way, and so you're not going to go as vertical. Two, you want to get more front foot pressure on the bottom turn, and the easiest way to do that is with the hips. So right now the hips are facing the nose of the board. If you get those hips turned towards the face of the wave, then you'll have more front foot pressure, right? So you can see that this, you're really driving kind of all on the back foot. There's very little pressure on the front foot. So getting a little bit more bend in those knees and turning the hips will do that. And then in the cutback, I think you don't want to turn your hips as much into the turn. You want to think here where you can see that the hips are here. The hips are facing a lot towards the nose of the board for the cutback. And again, you want those hips a little bit more perpendicular to the board, so that, or parallel with the board, however helps you to think about it, so that you can really rock that board onto the rail. All right. Nice. So similar things on the bottom turn. So I want to see you sheeting out more to go more vertical, and then getting more front foot pressure by turning those hips into the turn. But this is great timing. You're going at a point on the wave that you can commit to. You're in a radical section on the wave. You're getting the hips low, getting on the rail. You could have a little bit more bend in the knees, which would help you control the cutback more and not slide like this at this point. But still, radical turn. And you even manage a second one. So this is an awesome wave, by far the best wave we've seen so far. And yeah. All right, next up. Getting more speed. So you're figuring it out as the day goes on, you're figuring it out, doing better. One of the tricks to going more vertical in these conditions is you've got to sheet out. And pretty much in any condition, you need to sheet out in order to go vertical. Whoa, nice. So we don't really see the meat of this turn because these guys are in the way, but it's a big section and you're not doing anything too radical, but getting the high five, which allows you to pick up the speed and come out of it. So props. So here, if you're sheeting out more, it gives you a better setup to go into this turn. But still looks okay. All right, here's a little bit later on in the day on a 4-2. So again, very, very back-footed. And you can change that just by thinking about turning your hips into the turn. And then at this point, there's a moment where you're sheeting in, and that pulls you down the line. So here you're turning, and then if we look, you sheet in here, and that squirts you this direction rather than up vertical this direction. So what you want to do is actually the opposite. So at that moment, you want to sheet out if you're trying to turn on the section like that in front of you. Nice high five. I love these little high fives. You know, they're so relaxed, but just so beautiful, so flowing, and they feel great. You connect with the wave, pick up the speed. It's a great exercise to do. Not trying to be too radical, just getting that connection, getting that high five. Boom. That's cool. What I love with stuff like that is just really connecting with the wave and the power of the wave, which this is really about. So similar thing here. So there's a moment in your bottom turn where you're sheeting in instead of sheeting out. So here, this extra sheet in, what you want to be doing is actually sheeting out and leaning more into the turn. So these two technical tips will really improve your frontside riding. One is sheeting out halfway through the bottom turn and really then leaning over into the space that's created, and then getting those hips twisted. You can see they're really, really heavy on that back foot, which will help you go more vertical. Boom. Nice. Kind of a wobbly bottom turn. Whitewater waves are difficult because they're hard to read. They're bumpy, but you save it by going for that high five, right? The high five is magic because you get that bottom of the board presented, picks up the power of the wave, and it pushes you to safety. All right. All right, let's catch up on the comments. Ragnar is impressed. Me too. He says he wanted to hit these two sections but couldn't extend the bottom turn and mistimed it. If I would extend, I'd lose all speed. I'm not sure which sections those were, but I think that the things to work on are pretty clear, right? So in terms of setting up, you want to stay higher on the wave. So stay higher on the wave when you're setting up. In the bottom turn, in order to be less back-footed, whether you're goofy or regular or whatever, you just think about turning those hips, and then you'll be more even-footed. Make sure the knees are bent. You want to get low before you go. And then really sheet out in that bottom turn, because there's no way to come vertical otherwise. And so when you're sheeting in, instead of sheeting out, it kind of squirts you more down the line and less vertical, and takes you away maybe from doing those U bottom turns to get to the section that you want to get to. So that would be something to really consciously work on. And then in the cutbacks, they look good. You can hang from the sail a little bit more. So because of how you're doing the bottom turn, you end up quite close to the sail, sheeting in, which then is a difficult position sometimes for the cutback. So here, if I go back to the video, we can watch some of these examples. So because you're sheeting in so much, and then your body's really kind of pulled forward like this, it's difficult to get into that cutback. So you're sheeting in, and then then the sail is, it's in a difficult position to go into the cutback, and so is your body. So here, if I go back to my, Rasmus is saying that Hokipa has a lot of push, so it's good for sheeting out. You still get a lot of speed. Push is your friend. All right, so let me see if I can find an example from my footage, just as a contrast for body position. So here's a little high five aerial, just setting up. So here, look how much I'm sheeting out, and I'm leaning into that space that's created. And it actually kind of feels like you're sheeting in, even though you're sheeting out, because you're leaning so hard. And I'm not going super vertical, but it puts me in a position for the cutback. So again, so here I'm not, that's a different move. So Quentin is saying one tip that helped him is to put the clue higher. Interesting. So you're thinking about pushing the clue up. This one. So here, I want to find an example for you, Tomas. Okay, so I'm having trouble finding a great example from my footage. So here I'm traveling more down the line. So I'm not trying to do those U-shaped turns. It's more of a down the line approach, sort of using more of the wave. All right, let's see. So like there, you can see really sheeting out away from the sail, which allows me to go more vertical. You'll feel it. If you do it, you'll start to feel it, and then you'll have an idea of when you want to be sheeting out and when you want to be sheeting in. But in the beginning, you want to aggressively do it to start to feel the limits. Cool. All right. Thank you, Quentin, for this tip. I think it's a good tip. Let's put the clue higher. Tomas, thank you for sharing. That's it for footage. If you guys have photos, questions, videos, comments, concerns, all the above, post it in the Facebook group. I hope you guys have a windy week. I am going to call it a day. I think we're going to have a good windsurfing day today. Looks like it's windy. There's some new swell. And because we haven't had a great spring, I'm excited to get on the water. Rasmus is saying that Tomas has the mast tip too much inside too long, having problems with shifting rig out and forward. That can be, and I think sheeting out will make that happen more naturally. Tomas says it's related to the line intake on the wave. I don't know what that means, but I can check. He says okay, check the comments. All right, I'll check the comments. Power source, wave placements from start to cutback. I think I did like A, dropping too deep, instead of taking a higher line, dropping in tighter and turning more aggressively. I feel like I have the skills to do it, just realizing that I actually did was not close to what I thought I did. Yeah, I think this will help, but the two technical things, sheeting out and getting those hips turned, will make a huge difference. And there's a balance between working on concepts and fundamentals and working on small technical details. And Tomas is a very experienced rider and has a lot of time in different waves around the world. And so he understands a lot of the fundamentals. And so I would recommend him now focusing on more technical skills than maybe I'd recommend to someone else. But I think for now, Tomas, I think the one fundamental thing about where to set up and the line you're choosing is important. But also those two technical points that we keep coming back to are really important. The sheeting out in the bottom turn and then getting those hips twisted into the turn, which will help you get more front foot rail engagement. And then you'll bounce less. The board will have a better rail set. All good things. It sets you up in a better position for your cutback, all of the above. Hey, Cedric, good to see you. I hope you've been getting on the water. Rasmus is asking what happened with the April photo shoots on Maui. After COVID, they stopped doing it. There haven't been brand photo shoots on Maui for some years. It used to be that all the brands came to Maui to do their photo shoots, but not since COVID. Stopped. Dana says, thanks. Thank you, Dana, for showing up. He had 3 days on the water, sailing the Cape, the Rock, and the Rogue. Nice. He had the worst slam of his career. Blew in a turn, resulting in a knee spray, neck tweak, and half softball-sized hematoma on his butt cheek. Ouch! But glad you're getting on the water. Ragnar says he's curious about offshore versus cross-shore compared to conditions we have in Europe. I think that it's a mistake to think that offshore is easier. I don't think it is. Tomas said that in the post that he was surprised because he expected it to be easier. I don't think it is easier. In a lot of ways, they're just different, onshore versus offshore wave riding. It's just different. And I think it's pretty normal. I think that if you're coming from Hokipa to Hokipa from Europe, in fact, let me say this a different way. It's easier to go from Hokipa to Europe than it is from Europe to Hokipa. So in fact, I'd probably say that it's harder. It's more difficult here than in Europe. But definitely worth doing. If you have the level, I think it will improve your windsurfing. And yeah, I think it's awesome. Axel's saying whatever you're used to will feel easier. I think there's definitely an element of that. But also I see people from Maui going to softer, more onshore waves, and I see the other way around. And I think it's easier to go from the more powerful down the line waves to the softer onshore waves than the other way, for whatever reason. I don't know why. So Thomas, that the point is that I think your experience is a pretty common one, and I wouldn't expect something different. It's, I think, more difficult. I think it is more difficult. But those skills then transfer really well into Europe. All right. Take care, everyone. I'm going to sign off. Thank you for showing up. I will see you next week, Sunday. If you have questions, if you sail, get some footage, post it in the Facebook group. And I'll see you next week, Sunday. Hope you have a windy week. Bye.